ladies, we're so grateful for you to invest your time with us, and we're even more grateful for Laura, who donated her time and her knowledge and her insight to share with us. So Laura, we met a few years ago at one of your launch events, and we immediately connected, and I just felt your warmth and so relatable, so approachable, and so nice and genuine. And on top of all of those, you are so successful and your product are amazing. You know, Laura, like we asked you, was like, can you send us a bio? But then we look at your bio, I was like, oh, Laura, you're so humble. I feel like for some people who are as successful as you, maybe you don't feel like you need to brag about your accomplishments. But we know that your brand has won so many awards. Like you won QVC, you won Allure, like multiple awards. But when we get your bio, I was like, oh, Laura, it's like our sisters, our big sisters. So from an early age, you had a love affair with beauty. Your passion led you to become a successful makeup artist, wandering under the bright lights of Broadway and behind scenes with celebrities and socialites. But it was your devotion to making makeup work for real women that led you to create your own beauty brands and launch it on QVC over 2 decades. Like when I met you, we actually talk about you constantly launch on social media campaigns that engaging diverse women, like women who are over 40, women who are coming from different diverse backgrounds. And like to be on QVC over 2 decades, it takes so much energy and so much like media trying to do it. But every time you're on, people just feel like, oh, this is my best friend. So many people know your brand, so many people know who you are, so many people saw you on TV, but so many of us also wondering like what you did before you created your brand. So today we cannot wait to ask you so many questions to get a little bit more intimate with you and get inspired and learn with you. So without further ado, I will introduce our guest, Laura Geller.
Hi, everybody. I'm so happy to be here. In Summer, you're right. We connected right away. I will never forget where we were. And you stood out to me. And who knows? And that's just a little lesson, right? And I think we all know it. You never know who you're going to meet in life and where they're going to be and where they can take you. So spotlighting me is a true honor. Thank you for inviting me. And I'm so happy to meet Jacqueline and all the people in the Feely organization, New York City. And so I am here, I am open, and I am ready to answer questions for you all.
Oh, thank you so much, Laura. So we're going to get started and dive right in. And for everyone listening, this is interactive. So if you have a question, drop it in the chat box. Please feel free to continue asking questions. You don't have to wait all the way till Q&A if you want to know something from Laura on the topics and the questions we're asking her. So Laura, we'd like to know a little bit about your background, your professional career, how you got started. Maybe did it start from childhood? When did you realize you loved doing makeup and beauty?
Now that's the million-dollar question, right? Because I have to say, I didn't really know that there'd be a place for me in life to explore the business of beauty, but I knew that I was interested in it. My mother was an artist. She worked with clay. So the creative part of me was definitely from my mom. And yet she was a woman who wore very little makeup. And I was fascinated by all the women in my neighborhood, all the mothers who put on makeup and were very fashion forward. And they would take me under their wing and they would do my makeup for me for my special occasions. And I was about to go to college. I mean, I was enrolled in college. Now for anything I was really terribly interested in. And a student, a high school friend of mine said to me, why are you going to college? You love makeup. I know you love makeup. Come with me to beauty school. And I thought, and then I thought, well, let me go listen to what they have to say. And I went to the beauty school with her. She was going there for hair design because in those days you needed to have the license to do makeup, a cosmetology license. And I remember talking to the owner and he said something to me and it's what made me go in that direction. He just said, I think you're going to be very successful in the industry. And I said, why? And he said, because you have a gift of gab. He said, and that's going to work in your favor. So he got me. If that was the way to sell me into beauty school, he sold me. And I went ahead and I got my cosmetology license. You know, he said, you can always go back to college at a later time if you want to. He said, but at least do this. It's 9 months. And when I took the course, I really didn't learn makeup. I learned hair. And I didn't want to be a hairstylist. So he didn't know where to get me I grew up in a suburb outside of New York City in New York State. And he didn't know where I could learn the business of beauty. So he's like kind of opened the yellow pages and found a school called School of Visual Arts in Manhattan. And there was a theater and film makeup program there. And he just said, join and go. And I did. And I think if I wasn't so naive, I probably would have never ended up there and having it change the path of how I began makeup, because what I learned in that course was not about fashion makeup, was not about what I thought I was going to go learn. It was all about really anatomy and science and the anatomy of the face and how to put a bald cap on, how to put blood caps on and age a person's face. And I kept thinking, wait, when are we going to get to the beautiful pink eyeshadow and pink lipstick? And I was so disenchanted because it's not what I was thinking it was going to be. But because of that program, I learned so much. Really, I gained so much knowledge about artistry that I think I was able to parlay it into many different areas. I wound up getting a job in New York City at a store at the time that sold stage makeup to all the Broadway stars, because there is no budget on Broadway to hire a hair and makeup person. So famous, the most famous in the world, because it was located, the store was near Broadway, would come in, and they would come in for pancake makeup and panstick makeup, and costume designers would come in. And I knew how to use all that stuff and educate them on it because that's what I studied. And eventually, after being there as long as I was, and it was 10 years, a costume designer had come in and she said, I think I can keep you very busy. And I said, explain. And she said, I need you to come into all the Broadway shows I work on and fix the mistakes that the lead actresses and actors have. And, you know, you'll come in a couple times, load them up with the makeup they need. And I thought, oh my God, this is so cool. And so I wound up working on Broadway with Carrie Robbins, one of the most famous costume designers, iconic, legendary in the world. And while I loved it, my heart was working with real women and enhancing their natural beauty, because at this store, they also had a line of cosmetics called On Stage. That was the name of it. I'm sure nobody remembers that. But that line of makeup was what we called street makeup for real women. And so they also did makeup lessons at that store. And all of a sudden, they would book me for a makeup lesson, and I would go into a private room and do the makeup and fill out a face chart. It's like $25. And they would have this incentive. If I sold $90 worth of product, I got a $5 bonus. But if I sold 130, I got $10. And you know I was going for that 130. So time after time, I was like, wait a minute, this is kind of fun. And it started clearing my mind about, I think I like sales. And I think I like working with real women more than famous celebrities. And after 10 years, I left and I took an apartment in Hell's Kitchen, which was near where that store was. And I put up a makeup table with lights, and my clientele started coming to me, and nobody wanted to come to Hell's Kitchen. And they would come with their drivers, and I would have to convince them that it was safe on 8th Avenue in the 50s. And eventually, you know, I'll try to tighten it up. I wound up having to leave that space, and I rented a salon, a space in a salon on Madison Avenue, because nobody wanted to come to Hell's Kitchen. And I would start to book appointments in a salon on Madison Avenue. And I started garnering a very affluent clientele who wanted me to do their makeup for every special occasion, They wanted me to do their children's makeup for all the weddings that were coming up. And I still didn't want to have a store. I still kept thinking, I'm a makeup artist. I don't know about opening a store. But I really sort of coasted for a long time until everybody just started yelling at me. It was sort of build it and they will come. And I feel like that's how my whole career's been. It's been by the customer demands and saying, why aren't you doing this? We need this from you. And that's how the doors opened for me, more or less.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Incredible, Lauren. Yeah, Laura, you know, like every time I hear stories like this, like so real, I just want to cry because it feels so touching. And let's talk about this transition you made from being a successful makeup artist to female entrepreneur and businesswoman who eventually launched your brand. Because right now you are having a multi-million-dollar business, and after you open the store, there's still like distance from being a store owner to have an actual like very famous brand. So you got started in the cosmetic field because you saw a void and brought your innovation to tackle the issue. So what was the experience like?
Yeah, so I had opened my store in 1993, and it was a tiny little space, and I was busy from the minute I turned the key, because remember, I had accumulated a large clientele, and not just of clients, but also famous TV and film people who were putting me in the press, and I was busier than I expected to ever be. And I expanded the store because the space became available next to me. And all the while, I was, you know, literally in there, first in, last to leave, opening and shutting the gates, you know, borrowing from friends, you know, to keep the expansion going. And it was really tough. And I didn't know, frankly, how I was going to make this brand a national brand. And in 1997 or 96, I was at a function that is in the industry most of you may have heard of, called Cosmetic Executive Women. And they didn't exist early in my career, and I wish they had, but I went to this function every holiday. It was at the Waldorf Astoria, and you would go and you would network with, you know, professionals in the industry, by the way, men and women now. And I remember meeting at that time the beauty buyer for QVC. Somebody introduced me to her, and I was blown away because she said, oh, I've heard of you, you know, we should meet. And I thought, because I remember my accountant always saying to me, you'd be so good on the shopping channels and you should get on there. And I didn't know how to do that. And I had a meeting with this woman, and she came to my store, and we went down to my basement where my office was. And she said, you know, she had prepared me, you know, show me what you would present on QVC. And I showed her what I was experienced in doing, which was a contour and a highlight collection. Because what I learned mostly in theater and film makeup was how to sculpt a face. I was good at that. So I put together a 3-piece kit. It was a compact with a brown and a white for contouring and highlighting. It was a lamb's wool paddle to blend everything, and the applicator to put on the contour and highlight. And I remember she said to me, how much are you going to charge me for this? And I said, $7? I didn't even know. And she said, you'll never make money. And I said, okay, well, what would you pay for it? And she said, I'll give you $10. And I said, I'll take it. And the next thing I knew, she gave me an order for 750 units. This is in late 1996. And I thought, now I have to put these packages together. And I didn't know how to do that either. I didn't know about fulfillment houses and pick and pack houses. Like I said, I did not have a mentor. So I called my mother, and I remember saying, do you still have the bridge table in the house, in the garage? And she said, yes. And I said, can you call all your friends and tell them to come to my store and help me pack 750 kits? And she said, as long as you feed them. And the next thing I knew, and I had a bridge table in the back of my store, and we were packing up 750 units. And I will tell you, you know, when I think back, it's the journey that, like you said, Summer, you know, you think about where you came from, and it does make you emotional. It really does. we went on air in 1997 with 750 units. And let me tell you, it took a long time for us to pack out 750 units, but it was the best pack out anybody would have ever seen. So I went on air and I sold out in like less than 7 minutes. And I came off the set and I was hysterical crying because I hadn't sold 750 of anything, let alone one SKU. And I had no idea, no clue that there'd be a second order. And I don't remember when it was, maybe it was a week later. I was in the basement with my bookkeeper and we heard the sound of that fax machine it used to make, you know, and it would crank out those pages that, you know, now disappear, you know, and it was an order for 1,200 of the same collection. And I said, oh my God, I'm going back there. And it happened like that for a number of years until QVC started saying, we need other products and we need you to develop the products. We don't want turnkey. We want you to work with R&D and we want you to develop innovation. And from 1997 to 2002, I just would go on QVC for an 8-minute airing or a 10-minute airing. And in 2002, I launched my own 1-hour show. And it was unbelievable. It was one of the best hours they had ever seen in a new makeup launch. And I still, every year I would be there, I would never know that it would last now 23 years today. But if it wasn't for QVC, I really do owe QVC those kudos because it changed the trajectory of my whole life. It brought attention to me internationally. We went to QVC in the UK and in Germany and Italy. It got eyes from Sephora on my brand. And of course, we were underdeveloped financially, so we did it, but we shouldn't have. We were not ready to do that. And sadly, we had to exit. But I will tell you, it was QVC that made that change for me. That's when everything happened in, I would say, early 2000.
Absolutely mind-blowing. Goosebumps as you're speaking about this journey, Laura. It is incredible because you spoke about, nobody really talks about the beginning phases. When you call your mom and you're like, get the card table, bring in the ladies, I'll get the pizza. Nobody talks about those moments. We think of entrepreneurship and we put it on a pedestal, but we don't talk about the hard times, right? The gritty things that happened in the beginning. And before we go on to QVC, because I know it's such a huge part of your career and what made you who you are today, I want to ask you some deeper questions about that journey and what are some of the roadblocks that you experienced when you were in the beginning phases of launching and scaling your business, and what were some of the wins that kept you going, because that's a really hard thing to do when you don't know about manufacturing and setting up the legal and all of those things. So what were some of those blocks that hit you early on?
I'll tell you, how much time do you really have?
We got plenty of time.
No. I mean, honestly, there were a ton of roadblocks. And the thing that keeps me going and kept me really going then was the love of what I was doing. I was so happy. I was in my happy place, educating women on how to wear makeup, developing product, and being in front of a camera. I didn't know. You don't learn that in high school or college. You don't know that that's going to be something that you're going to love, right? And that's what sustained me, because I had pitfalls, and I don't know that everybody's going to have the kind of pitfalls, I certainly hope they won't, that I had. You know, in hindsight, I wish I had studied business because I would have been ahead of the curve and understood the behind the scenes. And I was so busy being out in front that I didn't take care of the behind the scenes, you know, what do they call that? You know, minding the business basically. And so when I had to create price points for our items on QVC, I priced them too low. And so I didn't have good margins, as an example. And I didn't know better. And I didn't have, I had honest, good people, but they didn't have the experience either. And I really, it took a long time till I found people to help me, but it was at that point a bit too late. So as an example, when we launched in Sephora, our price points were so much lower on our products than any other color cosmetic brand that was in there. And they came to us and said, you can't sell this for that cheap because we have brands in here that you are competing against, and you can't be that, low in price point. But we couldn't take a price from $20 to $30 at Sephora. How do you do that if you're going to have it at QVC for $20? So those were the kinds of mistakes. I didn't know the landscape of the business. I didn't understand that I should have price pointed things much differently. I would have been much further ahead and turned a better profit margin on the business. And so that, I think, was definitely one of my biggest pitfalls. And then I had the typical problems of staffing and employees, and not being able to stay on top of that and manage that well, and choices I made that I thought, this person's going to be great for my business, that, and ended up not being great for my business and sometimes hurting me. I mean, those are things that are embarrassing to talk about, but they're real. A lot of people had envy, and they were like seeing my business grow, and they felt like they were responsible for the growth of my business, and wanted more from me, and not just financially. They just I had lots of things go on, like pilfering and stealing. And I remember having a bookkeeper that not a bookkeeper, an accountant that would come in and do my taxes, but he would just ask me for blank checks because he did it from his office. So he'd say, you have to sign these 4 checks for federal quarter period ending 1999, and I was signing blank checks and, not checking where things were going, because the business was growing at such a fast pace, and finding out later that in fact he embezzled a lot of money from me. And that was really, really hard. And thankfully I was working with a very famous celebrity, and she knew what I was going through, and she brought me to a really good accounting firm who was able to help me get out of the mess I was in. So I think, for anybody, today there's so much more mentorship. There's so much more access to getting the kind of help. It makes me sound like I'm ancient, but the truth is, when you're busy working, you don't have time to fix the house, so to speak. You're so busy out there. If you're in sales, for an example, and you're the front person in sales, you're so busy out there selling so that you can use the money that you make to put back into growing the business, that sometimes you don't take the time out. Plus, I wasn't interested in it. It was not an area for me that I had knowledge in, so it didn't interest me. So I didn't take the time out, and I got burned a lot.
Yes. Laura, amazing. While you are unraveling your personal journey, I see how you expanded from being a makeup artist to be an entrepreneur, to be a true leader. Because as a true leader, you have to know how to manage your team externally, internally, how to inspire people, how to manage them, respect them, but while being smart with people. Like the whole journey, you just like expanded yourself, which is very inspiring and touching. Thank you so much, Laura. Yeah, and speaking about our favorite parts, products, since you mentioned the product and launched with research and development department, and one of my favorite product from your brand is still the product I got on the day I met you, the foundation. It's like a long wear foundation, so light, but also like it's not dry my skin out. It's creamy, but it still feel breathable. So can we talk about the product? So
please,
yeah,
that's what I love to talk about. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yes. So you have amazing products, and several of your products, from lipsticks to foundation, like varieties, win awards. So what is your must-have product, and what is your favorite product from your line, and do you have any new product coming out that you can share with us?
Oh yes, well, all good questions. I'll tell you, the thing I think that really helped me in product development was working with women between, the ages of 16 to 90, everything in between, and understanding what their needs are and how they wanted simple things and things that performed. And I think that gave me a leg up when it came time to do product development with my team, because I really understood how to solve problems and knew to develop products that would solve a problem that a lot of women had. And so as an example, Spackle Under Makeup Primer was one of my first products that I ever did research and development on. I probably was one of the first. There was maybe one or two others that had primer in the marketplace, but nobody knew what under makeup primer was. There was never a category that was as big as it is today. And I wished then that I knew that I was starting something that could be so big that it would become a category on its own. I would have probably done something a little different to make it a little bit more that I own that category. But Spackle is probably one of our most successful. We started with one. We have upwards of 10 different formulations in Spackle for different skin needs and different skin colors. And, so that's one of our biggest. And then after the Spackle franchise is our Baked franchise. And how Baked came about was I would go to all the trademark trade shows and go and look at, what developers were doing. And I was always on search because QVC always demanded new innovation. And I was always in search of looking for something that was different than anything you've seen out there. But not just because it was different looking, but that it performed differently too. And I had this bronzer in my makeup drawer, in my vanity, and I put it on every day. And it took me 2 seconds to get this gorgeous bronze face. And one day I opened my drawer and I looked at it and I thought, where did I get this from? What is this? It was all these swirls of different color. And I remember going on a chase, on a hunt, because it was old, but yet I still had so much product. When I found out that it was from a factory in Italy, I literally had the rep. We flew together and we went to the factory in Italy to find out what it was and how it was made. And in those days, when I started with Baked, they let me inside the factory. Now you can't go in. And it was this little town in the south of Italy. And every one of these baked products were handmade by real artisans. And there were some other major companies like Chanel, like MAC Cosmetics, that had products. And I would look down and go, oh my God, look who's on the production line with me. I'm in good company, but nobody was speaking because QVC, like Jacqueline said, it's a storytelling opportunity. And I love talking to my gal pals. And so now I was able to go on and talk about how it was made and why it's different and the point of difference. And I brought baked technology to the forefront where nobody ever would have thought, you get your makeup made in all different places, but people don't talk about how their makeup is made. And so that really set me apart.
Love it. Absolutely. Absolutely love it. Just the story. And I can imagine you walking in the factory and seeing all of the, the workers making this with their hands, and what a cool experience that must have been.
I actually have a picture.
Oh my gosh, you have to share it with us.
Yeah, we have a video that we can send to you too, but they actually let me make some of our, it's called Bronze and Brighten. And now we have bronzer, foundation, blush, and they're all award winning. In fact, at QVC, they do a customer choice award winning on different categories. And we own blush category, we own bronzer, we own highlight, and we own primer. The 4 things I'm most known for that I created is what we continue to get awards for time after time. And this is just, I don't know if you could see that.
Yeah. Oh my God. That's so cool.
This is such a moment.
Oh,
all right. Yeah. We probably need to make a movie about your story. Yeah, if you ever make a movie based on yourself, let us know. We need to go to the movie premiere. We want to see the whole story. And Am I mistaken? I also think you own the fifth category. You also won awards for lipsticks, right? For
lip
lips.
gloss sets. Yeah,
Yeah.
you were the original. You were the original lip kit, contour, baked, all of it. All of it.
Yeah. Actually, we did baked lipstick. We have a baked iconic lipsticks that are award winning, and then Italian marbles, which are made by the same artisans where they mix two colors together. I mean, for me, it's not good enough to just come out with something that everybody else has. Unless it has a point of difference, I try to not do it, because if you can get it anywhere else, why would you come to me? So sometimes we do need those products, because everybody needs to sometimes have a basic liquid liner or a basic lip liner. I mean, you can't really make things that different in some categories, but for the most part, the ethos of the brand is products that solve a problem in lickety split time and are joyful to use, and that you don't need an instruction manual to work with those products.
Absolutely. That's why you create for everyday real women, like everyone on this call, and we appreciate your products so much. And now I'm going to ask you probably the hardest questions. It's been a rough 6 to 7 months here for everybody globally. We're in a global pandemic. So I just want to know from you as a business owner, entrepreneur, leader, what have you been going through? How has COVID affected your business? That's part one. And then part two, this whole situation has really made us all slow down, and it shifted our perspective. So what have you learned about yourself that kind of surprised you throughout this process of slowing down?
Well, you know, it's funny, in anticipation of our chat today, I wanted to make sure that I conveyed a couple things to every woman or man, whoever's here with us, that's so important. And I didn't know how important it would be until the pandemic happened. And now I know how important it is. And I'll tell you what it is. It's developing a sense of community. You gals already know that because you do Feely NYC. If you don't have your own community, and you haven't built a trust in the people who are coming to you for whatever your service is, and you haven't figured out how to pivot to create a community, this is when you should be pivoting. Because I have always felt like my joy is my customer. Literally, they are an extension. They are my family. Like I can't tell you what they mean to me. And they give me purpose in life. And I think that sense of community that I've built over the 23 years I've been on QVC has been one of trust and respect mutually. And so when this awful pandemic has happened to all of us, and I pray for everybody to be healthy and their families and loved ones, when this happened, what happened from it and emerged from it is that my community was there for me. So it has not affected me the way it has hurt so many other businesses, because when I go on QVC, my following is there now. And more than ever, they have risen, because we have more of a captive audience now through virtual meetings, through television, through .com. This is how women are shopping more, because brick and mortar is really struggling at this time. So I did not get hurt in the area of QVC. In fact, if anything, it's grown. It's really grown. And because of it, I'm able to be on QVC in the United Kingdom too, where I started backing off a couple of years ago from flying there. I used to fly there 6 times a year. I was due to go there only twice this year. Now they can get me live via Skype, which is how I'm doing all of QVC, from my guest room back there. I have a little virtual room set up. And so, you know, for me, it's been a joy as far as being able to be more visible to my customer. And I think why we are successful is because we're not new and just trying to pivot and build. We've been there all along, and I've never disappeared. And so I think that's why things are good. I think what was your other question? Was
How
it
did
about?
it affect you personally, or what did you learn about yourself during this time?
It definitely, and I think everybody's going to agree with this, and I think it has to have happened to every one of you, is that I didn't need to be running at the pace I was running. I didn't need to be going at the crazy pace I was going. I didn't even realize, none of us realized how we were living. I was, taking the Pennsylvania Turnpike, New Jersey Turnpike to the Pennsylvania Turnpike, sometimes a couple times a week, sometimes just for an 8-minute hit, not being able to be home with my 20-year-old son, not having time for me. And going to events that, yeah, I had a good time when I went, but it was like a twist of the arm. Like, if I don't go, it doesn't look good. Like we do a lot of charitable events. Well, guess what? They've had to pivot, and they've done them virtually, and I've attended virtually, and I didn't have to wear a black tie dress, and I didn't have to, fight the city traffic. And I must tell you, it's really been, for me, it's been an actual plus. And I don't know, to be honest with you, if I could ever go back to the way I lived before. In fact, I won't go back to the way I lived before. I won't do it, because I happen to be a person who's a little bit of a homebody anyway. So I've been training for this for a very long time. Just saying. I do this for a long time. Just saying.
So glad you mentioned it. I think, Laura, that's a part of you, like, make us always feel like you're so relatable, because you always share the things like everybody feels, oh, same. So everybody who lives in New York City has those kind of twisted mindsets. Should I go? But that's not good. I'm going to miss out something, always. Yeah, but it's a new pace. So since you mentioned the new pace, I want to ask you, how have things fundamentally changed, and what will our new normal look like? And I want to give you a specific dimension for this question. So half of our ladies here, they are corporate executives, and half of us are entrepreneurs. So having a new pace is very enjoyable, but also we're facing a challenge, how to incentivize your team remotely. Like Philly, right now we're a team of 4. So Katie is a full-time member right now, and Katie is our high-level consultant. So we're expanding, but everybody is remote. Last month, I moved into our new office. Well, everyone is working remotely. So what is the new normal look like for you, and how could you keep your team motivated and incentivized?
Well, let me just let everybody know a backstory that we did not discuss, is that I sold my company. So I am no longer the owner of Laura Geller, for those of you who don't know. So I no longer am managing people. So when I speak to the new normal, nothing has really changed for me. So I know most people won't identify them with this. I think, for me, the small group of people at my office that I am in constant contact with, in marketing or product development, mostly the people who run the QVC business, those are sort of my people that I'm dealing with on a regular basis. And frankly, it's Zoom calls, it's regular calls, and we accomplish a lot that way. And everybody feels invested, and I think it's important. I always thank everybody for their time and their help, because I couldn't do this without them. So I am eternally grateful for the heavy lifting they do. And I think that's important. I think that comes natural. We all know that we have to thank the people who are helping us to do whatever it is we're doing. And that's unilaterally, I mean, whether it's pandemic or not. But so I know, it's been a very long time where I managed people, to be honest, Summer.
Yes. And Laura, so glad you mentioned it to us because I always wanted to ask you. You've been building the global brand over 2 decades, and so many of the new entrepreneurs from the younger generation, the goal is for us to exit, like we want to make a brilliant brand and we want to exit as fast as possible for some of the entrepreneurs. So I always want to ask you, have you ever thought about exiting? Oh, yes, so glad you mentioned it. And why did, because I'm always interested in the business side of your business as well. So I actually did some research. So I think Forbes article said you did work with a private equity firm, right? For
Yes,
investment. Yeah,
yes. That's how I started in 2012.
right.
And then there were a lot of bumps along the way, but
Yeah.
ultimately a full exit in 2016 for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
So from 2012 to 2016, I still was, a partner in my own company. But you said something that like stung. And I would say to every entrepreneur listening is that's every entrepreneur's dream or hope if they have the kind of business they could sell. But you said fast. And I would say, don't look at it that way.
I know.
Because honestly, fast doesn't get you where you want to be. I mean, it could, right? It could. And I certainly have colleagues in the business of brands that you all know that have worked a lot less hard than I did and for a lot less time than I did and exited for a lot more than I did. And kudos to them, but they were smarter and they didn't have to work as hard as I did. But I'm grateful for my journey because it made my exit that much sweeter. And I just think that you have to walk the path of getting knocked down and back up and knocked down and backed up to enjoy the exit, honestly. And if you're doing what you love, like I did for a long time, think, oh my gosh, I need someone to come in and invest in my company because I need more money to grow the business. And I also want the business acumen that they could bring that I didn't have. But I was always so proud that I owned 100%. And it was always like the thing, like I own 100%. And then people would always say to me, well, do you want a small percent of a big thing, or do you want 100% of a small thing? And so I probably should have taken on private equity sooner in my career. But the reason why I couldn't was because I didn't have anybody working for me that understood how to prepare my business for an exit. And so that is very important. You have to align yourself with either an accountant or somebody who knows how to do this, that works on a consulting basis, who understands how to build what they call, which is your book. And it took years once I had interest from equity people in the industry, which is cause of QVC. Once the interest was there, I was like, I don't know how to do a book. And then I would look at my accountant and say, can you help me with a book? And they'd be like, And so there was another pitfall. It took me almost 3 years, maybe longer, till we were able to get a book together to then be able to sit in front of investors with a private bank so that they can look at the history and the EBITDA and understand, where the business was today. And so there were definitely things I would say should have gone quicker, but to think about exiting fast, I would not ever advise that. I think you go into something for the love of what you're doing. If it happens, it's just the cherry on the cake, but you have to take the journey and live it, because then when you have a founder story, the investors that are sitting in front of you are compelled by your story. And that was one thing unilaterally that every investor said. We love the founder story of this brand. And so the story, every time someone tells me about a hardship they're going through, I'll say, it's part of your story. And that's going to help you to sell your business down the road. And, keep notes about those stories. Like you said, asking your mother's friends to come over and, stuff your kits, that's part of the story. But then it just felt like, why am I doing things so antiquated? And why don't I have a fulfillment house? And why don't I have a QVC C-suite executive working for me? But you know what? My story was real, and it became, engaging to investors. So I hope.
Yeah, that's great. Laura, you have an absolutely incredible story, and you just dropped so many gems there for everyone that's starting their business or on their second business now. We have a lot of entrepreneurs listening in, and I have one last question for you before we're going to.
I just looked down at the comments. My friend Heather Fink is starting her own business too, and she's with us tonight.
I love it. So ladies, start getting your questions ready.
Yeah.
My question for you, Laura.
Yeah, Laura, I really want to comment on one part. Do not sell your business fast, because when you said it, I'm pretty sure Jackson felt the same way. Because for Philly Journey, this is the second year, and we worked with so many companies like Google, Lyft, SAP. We had great conversations with investors, but both of us decided not to take investment for right now. It's hard while bootstrapping financially. Maybe it's not that easy for us, but we truly enjoy the journey. We don't want to focus on the scalability with losing our identity. And I think so many of the entrepreneurs here, they have to make their own decisions. But whatever you said actually really resonated with Jacqueline and me. I'm pretty sure Jacqueline was thinking about the same.
I made that mistake on my first one. So, it's those learning lessons that it's not about rapid investment and burn rate. And it's about enjoying what you're doing. So I couldn't agree with you more. And this is my last question for you before we're going to open it up to the floor. So we have a ton of entrepreneurs in this group right here. What are the things you wish someone told you, Laura? And be like, it could be the nitty gritty. It can be, the hardship. It can be the positive. What did you wish someone told your younger self? Like, you didn't have that mentor, right? So you're having the opportunity to be a mentor now to 25 of our women. What would you say? And ladies, take out a pen and paper, write this down from Laura Geller.
I'm going to tell you, it's what I taught my son. Because not having the business acumen, and I'll tell you what I mean by my business acumen. I said to my son, Daniel, you can have a great gift of gab and you can know your stuff, but unless you understand certain pieces of business and you've either taken a course in it or went to college for it or, whatever it may be, you will never be able to parlay that business effectively because you won't be able to check on the people who are doing those areas and know if they're doing them right. So for an example, I didn't understand what marketing was. People kept, applying for jobs with me for a marketing position. I was like, what's marketing? I'm like, I really didn't understand it. I had gotten PR late in the business. And I thought that was enough. Like, I didn't need marketing too. Well, I told my son, I said, I know where your interests are and I know what you're interested in doing, but you have to learn marketing. You have to understand, once you learn marketing, you can do it in finance. You can do it in healthcare. You can do it in conferences. Like, you need to understand marketing. I never understood what that was. And I know most of you are going, why would you not have known what that was? I mean, literally from when you develop a product to understand and be able to forecast how much that one product should cost, your cost of goods, what you should retail it for, all in, with your cost of goods, and where is it going and how much money should that product bring in, how much revenue should you get from that? Simple things like that I didn't do, which is why I told you my biggest mistake was I just guessed at pricing. I mean, literally guessed at it. And I shared that with you. So I'm not embarrassed to admit that I was ignorant about a lot of things. So I would tell you that if you are doing something right now today, but you're missing a skill set in an area where it's going to help you to sell your business, in a bigger way. I don't mean just exit, but if you're trying to get more eyeballs on your business or sell a product or sell a service, then you need to either hire somebody with that business acumen that you trust and work closely with that person. Don't think, okay, it's being handled, I don't have to deal with it now. Or learn it yourself. So those would be some of the things that I would say. I didn't know where I was going to end up. I didn't know it was going to be a line of cosmetics. I didn't know. I knew I liked makeup and I liked people and I liked retail. I didn't even know that I was set out for that. My father was a salesman. I guess by osmosis, it happened to me. But those would be some of my recommendations. And don't look for the quick fix, and don't look. I said this to the woman who I spoke to right before our meeting, who called me for some advice. Don't look at the people who, you can't help it, you will. And it's envy, it's not jealousy. There's a difference. I have a friend who taught me the difference. Don't look at the people who have achieved what you want and got there and say, I should be there right now. Look at the people behind you who aren't even where you're at right now, and look at how far you have accomplished already, and take joy in where you are in this moment. And even if you sell, and and that comes with, by the way, that's not a walk in the park. There's things that happen after you sell that you have to be prepared for. Jacqueline, you said you did this once before, so there's highs and lows that come from that too. But you have to relish in the good. And I think because I paid my dues and I'm a 40-year overnight success, I feel so grateful for where I landed. And it's nowhere near where other people are, but for me, I'm living the dream. I have my own beautiful home. I don't need much more. I don't live big. I live within my means. I didn't ever have this in my lifetime, so I'm grateful for what I have.
Yeah, that's such a great advice. Like the advice and tips you would share with your son, Daniel, like so true. And Laura, like every sentence you said, just so resonating. Remember you said, like, don't look at the woman. You're telling yourself, oh, you should be there. That's how I felt all the way until I've co-founded Philly with Jacqueline. Remember, you recommended me to be Forbes under 30 when I had the previous jewelry e-commerce business. And I felt that one was felt over a year. And right now I'm 31, Jacqueline is 31 too. So we will never have opportunities to become Forbes under 30. But right now we're happy, we're so grateful, we're passionate about building Philly and helping female entrepreneurs. And whatever you said, if you don't know this kind of knowledge, just like have help. That's why we have masterminds, or train yourself. Literally, Jacqueline and I, we are training ourselves with our web development based in Argentina for technology. Like we know nothing about technology. So everything you said is just so true, so resonating. And by the way, your son Daniel looks cute because he looks like you.
Oh, you're so sweet. Thank you.
Okay,
So
Laura, so
thank you so much, Laura. And I see some questions coming in our chat box. Katie, would you like to come on and unmute yourself and ask Laura your question?
Sure. Hi, Laura. Can you see me okay?
Where are you?
We can't see you, Katie, but we can hear you.
I can hear you.
Wonderful. So I was curious, one of my questions you already answered, so thank you. But I'm curious about how did you make your best hiring decisions? And can you tell us any stories about people that were with you throughout this journey that ended up being great partners along the way?
Well, I'm not sure I always made the right hiring decisions. And sometimes I hired people and I didn't, again, another piece of business acumen that I didn't have. I just sort of went with my gut. Some turned out to be lifers. And some, when I sold my company, some didn't emerge with the changes in the company that were needed and had to be let go. So it's a difficult process. I think now because of the landscape and the opportunity to find people through many different ways and means, you probably could get access to a lot more professionals that you may need for what you're doing. And I don't know all the trade organizations that all of you are involved in, but like, I wish Feely existed when I started in business. I mean, my God, I mean, just hearing any founder that has anything to impart, even if it's one thing, but I would say that, you know, managing employees and making the right hires was probably, I could probably write a book about that. It was not easy. So I wish I can tell you I got it right. But it was hard. It was hard. I'll tell you that. It was hard.
Thank you. And there's definitely resilience in that too, because I think through those hard moments, we all learn so much. But thank you. This has been so inspiring, and I've really enjoyed learning about your journey. So thank you.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Thank you, Katie. We have a question from Naomi. Naomi, would you like to ask Laura yourself?
Hi, Laura. Thank you so much for this amazing talk, this real talk with Laura. It's been super inspirational, insightful, many goosebump moments. So it has been super amazing. My question for you is this. Now that we're in a very fickle time right now with the elections, you know, RBG's gone. We have someone else that's replaced her. There's this whole thing talking about the women's movement, the women's cause, the women's purpose. Especially during your time of when you started your career so early on, what challenges did you face as an entrepreneur, as a woman, as a wife, as a mother, as a business owner, especially in the industry that you were trying to penetrate?
I'm going to tell you something, Naomi. I didn't have any challenges. You know when my challenges happened? When I got in the big league and I took investment. When you are an entrepreneur, you create your own path and you follow your path and you don't let roadblocks get in the way. I mean, it's different. Let's face it, I'm in a business of beauty, so it's mostly female dominated. Well, it's female dominated, not always, but so I didn't have any, I never felt like, oh boy, I'm in, you know, this is a man's world, or I didn't have any of that. So I always said, I never could relate to that. I didn't work in C-suite. I wasn't in corporate ever. So I don't know from that, Naomi. But now, you know, it's different depending on what you do. I suspect that, and by the way, I did experience it. It's real. And I'll just put it that way. I have experienced it, as not lately, but, and it kind of stinks. But I'd be damned if I let anybody wear me down. And I never let them see me sweat. And I still kept my eye on the prize. And I thought, you can do whatever you want, say whatever you want, and try to act a certain way, but you're not interfering in my ultimate goal. And that's how I forged ahead. It's not very clear, but maybe that'll be in the movie one day. You know, it's not easy. It really isn't. It's, you know, depending on what you do and how many men you are in the business with. But I think there is a movement, and I think there is change, and I think change is happening now. Right. And I think we're all going to be in a better place, in my opinion.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
That's amazing that you had those experiences and that you were very focused on what you're doing and where you're going. So, which is incredible. And it's amazing to hear those special stories, because guess what? In your movie, you're one of the few women that have probably gone through that.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's an interesting question. So thank you for bringing it up, because I do think that there are people who go through it. And I was lucky. I didn't have to deal with anybody making decisions for me or telling me how to do things. But, you know, again, like I said to all of you, and Jacqueline knows, you know, when you sell your company, if you stay on, or if you are only selling a percentage of your company, that's a whole nother realm of conversation that you have to be prepared for. And you're not really prepared for it ever, because things will come up and you'll be like, whoa, I didn't expect that to happen. Whoa, you know. So you know, the more you can read up on, you know, people's stories about, Tamara Mellon wrote a great book that I loved. Oh gosh, I wish I could remember the name of it, but she had the shoe business and she talked about selling and what happened to her. And so, and look at Bobby Brown. She's she's sold to Estee Lauder.
Oh,
She's,
in my shoes, by the way. I'm going to drop the link because it's a really good one.
Thank you so much, honey. I couldn't remember. And I meant to write that down. Did I write it down? No, but I wrote, the other book was Estee Lauder's A Success Story, which I read cover to cover, because that was more for me. But I was going to say, I forgot what I was going to say. I totally forgot. But I just will tell you that the more you can listen to founder stories. Oh, and who does that podcast? I keep meaning to listen to it. I have never listened to it. I'm going to tell you. He was on Jimmy Fallon recently, and he does a podcast with big people, like the guy from Howard Schultz from Starbucks, and talks to founders that have done, sold their businesses. He's very well known, and I'm looking for him now for you guys. But if not, I'll let you guys know and you can drop the link.
Thank you. Thank you. And we only have time for one more question because I know we can talk to you all night, Laura. You're just amazing. And
oh my goodness.
You literally are just fabulous. Thank you. So Elena, would you like to ask your fun question to Laura?
Sure. This is a fun beauty question, not a business question.
Okay.
I've been going to, family events, small family events, and I go and do my whole face of makeup, and then I got to put this mask on. And I feel like it's totally taking away. There's no pop of a lip. There's no, I feel like my eyes look closed more than they should. So I wonder what your recommendations are for when you are wearing a mask, but you're still trying to look like your normal face. What do you recommend for that?
Well, to Summer's original question that she wanted me to talk about products that are coming out, we are actually coming out with some new products, and one will be in early January. One will be called Smart Pout. It took forever to develop this because I wasn't going to just do something turnkey, which is a long wear transfer proof lipstick, but filled with hydration. That sounds like an anomaly, but it's going to be that way. But I would tell everybody, by the way, we have a discount code that we're offering. So on any of the products that you want, we will have that information for you. But I think you have to stick with more lightweight foundations. Like our baked foundations are so light. Creams and liquids may be a little hard because the mask will show lines, and a lot of people are getting mask-ny. So I would say probably stick with more powdered formulations, baked formulations. That's number one. Number two, it's all about the eyes, right? It's all about the eyes. So you almost could just do a light concealer or a light foundation and not worry about doing too much to your face. Always have your lipstick on hand to pop on after you take the mask off when you're with people. But eyes, I have a theory. It's the 3 E's. It's eyebrow, eyeline, and eyelash. So if you can remember always to fill in your brows, because that's what frames the whole eye. Eyelash lifts your eyes and makes them more open. And eyeline brings out the framework of your eye. That's my philosophy. I mean, even if you just put a little color on your lid or a little blush across your lid, but you've got to do those 3 things. And, for those of you who love lashes and you have time on your hands now, you may want to pick up some strip lashes and start playing with them. They're fun to do, and for special occasions, they make all the difference in the world. And it takes time to learn how to do them, so don't do it when you're ready to go out. Play with it first. But I'm wearing fake eyelashes now. I mean, I'm like on a Zoom call, I'm like, who am I kidding? If I took this off, you would not see my eyes as much, just saying.
We might need an Instagram video tutorial on how to do the lash.
You know what? That's a good idea.
I can use that help. Thank you so much.
And you also should write a book. We would love to read a book if you write.
I've been asked through the years, and I think I was afraid to write it because I never wanted to sort of, well, I was afraid to write it because I was embarrassed by some of the pitfalls, because they were my mistakes, and I was embarrassed that I didn't know better and didn't do, have the knowledge. But now I'm at a different place in life, and I totally want to do that. And I just need to find somebody who's a ghostwriter, because that's the one thing I would never even attempt to do.
Oh, we have people we can recommend you to.
Yes.
We got you, girl.
Yes.
Not another area of expertise that I do not have. So
we have a few friends who publish the books and the best-selling authors, so we can make the intro, and they may have someone to recommend.
Okay.
And yeah, Alina is our mastermind member, and she just gave birth during COVID. So new mom executives having her own consulting agency, it's not an easy journey. So yeah, Laura, it's so good to talk to a successful entrepreneur.
Thank you for your time and giving me the platform. And I love all of you who tuned in today and stayed with us for this long hour or more. I appreciate the time you afforded me, and I do hope I helped in some small way with anything I shared.
Oh,
Yeah, you did.
Thank you so much, Laura. And we dropped your discount code in the chat box here, and our head of house, Catherine, will be sending a recap email to everyone and also sharing the code and Laura's website and social handles, so you can follow her and her amazing adventures. And Laura, thank you.
Yeah, Laura's personal Instagram is Laura J. Geller. Go follow her right now.
Followers, I don't have a lot of followers.
I know. And Laura, when you mentioned how to do the makeup tips to Alina, you know what? You are still a true teacher. That's what you call yourself. Although you're successful, multi-million, like millionaire, billionaire, you're still a true teacher. Really enjoyed the session with you. Thank you so much for donating your time with us and being so authentic.
Thank you,
we
Laura.
love you so much.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.